What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Movie Emporium's TV review of Season 1, Episode 1 of the Disney Plus original series, Moon Knight. This episode is directed by Mohamed Diab. Now, before we begin, if you like this channel, awesome. Hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button, as well as commenting below on any video that you watch, including this one. So it's safe to say I was pretty excited when I found out I was able to watch the first 4 episodes of Moon Knight early. It was not something I was expecting at all. And so when they showed up in my inbox, I'm like, oh, cool. I get to watch Moon Knight. I get to see what this show's about, because early people that have seen it, people that have already watched it, have talked about how great it is. So I'm one of those people that I'm not a big fan of stuff like or Falcon the Winter Soldier. I like WandaVision a lot. Loki had its moments that kind of fell off, but it's been a really interesting kind of journey for the MCU to go finally make its way into television. But this series seemed a little different. It has, of course, Oscar Isaac as the main character. It, of course, has Ethan Hawke is the main villain, and it's a series that actually looked like it could be a lot of fun. It looked different. Some of the clips that have been put out have been very dark and horrifying a little bit, and this feels like a character that could be like the Guardians of the Galaxy, one of those characters you've never heard of before, or most people have never heard of before. I should reiterate that. Most people like myself have never heard of before until they've come out into the medium that is, of course, video or television. So with that said, I was actually pretty excited to see this. I love Oscar Isaac. I love Ethan Hawke a lot. And this concept seems pretty interesting. So this first episode, which I don't have the title name for, has to do a lot of groundwork. It has to do a lot of running. It has to do a lot of setup to explain this character that is Steven or Mark or Moon Knight, whatever you want to call him, and his kind of world view of everything that's happening. And I think for a good portion of it, it actually does what it needs to do. And it's not a perfect episode, because a lot of stuff happens really quickly. And, because this is a Disney Plus show, there's like 10 minutes of credits. So you have to work pretty quickly to get yourself situated. And this is a show that, watching it was really interesting, because they skirted around a lot of violence, a lot of stuff that this character Moon Knight does. And I really like how the transition happens, how everything happens with the Steven character, who we find out is also called Mark. To start out, like I always do, doing the spoiler discussion, this episode opens up before the Marvel cinematic logo. We have a guy, and he has a scale on his arm, which actually is important for this episode. And we come to this person, gets a glass, drinks water, busts the glass, and puts it in his shoes. And we find out that this character is Arthur Harrow. And Arthur Harrow is, of course, played by Ethan Hawke's character, and he of course, is the bad guy of the series. And it's really interesting, because he is very tuned into this character named Mohamed, who is a god in Egypt and stuff like that. And he is an individual that, for some reason, puts glass in his shoes and wears them and walks away, which is really disturbing. Disturbing, to be fairly honest. But we've seen it a lot of times, and I'm pretty sure this isn't true life, but we saw it in I think one of the Da Vinci Code movies or whatever, where when it comes to religion, people do stuff to keep themselves in check, I guess you could say. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's like a punishment for doing something. And he does that, and he walks away, and that's when the Marvel MCU logo pops up and stuff like that. And then we're introduced to, of course, Steven, who's played by Oscar Isaac. And what's really interesting about his character is he wakes up and he's actually confused about where he is. He actually ties his legs to with the kind of hospital, like psychiatric ward bindings and stuff like that, to his feet. He has tape on the door. He has a goldfish, and he repeats this day after day. But it's really interesting, because you're as confused as kind of how he looks when he wakes up, but you really don't know why he does this. And I mean, we've seen the trailer, but if you're following along as this episode moves along, you're really not sure why he does this. It's that kind of thing. Well, he also is a guy that has a normal life. He's very timid in a lot of respects. He has a mother he talks to. He works at a museum. He's very fluent, or not fluent, but he's very schooled in the idea of Egyptology and stuff like that, the different gods of Egypt and so on and so forth. And he also works as he works in the store of the museum selling products to kids. And a woman comes up to him and is like, hey, look, here we are, we're going to go on a date and stuff like that. And he's really confused by it. He's like, did I ask you on a date? And the woman, who just kind of laughs it off and walks away. And then, of course, his boss comes up named Donna, and Donna's a real jerk and kind of an a-hole to him and stuff like that. And you have to have those characters because you have to kind of show Mark as this very timid individual. But this leads to Mark's kind of sad life where he actually talks to a statue, which I think it's one of those people who do the statue things, because there's a hat on the ground which people are giving money to and all that good stuff. And it really shows you kind of this guy's weird life and just kind of his quiet natured individual, and he just kind of lives day by day. He has a goldfish and he's going to go on a date. Just nothing really seems out of the ordinary about this guy. It really is until the next scene when we see the kind of how he tries to get himself to stay awake. Like I said, he wakes up and he just doesn't know what's going on, but he uses the Rubik's Cube, which we've seen in the trailers. We've seen, him read books and stuff like that. And he throws the Rubik's Cube up, and as soon as he throws it up and falls back down, he finds himself awake in a grass meadowy field of some sort. I'm like, that's interesting. And I do have a problem with how quickly this happens. I think it's like 13 minutes into this episode. But as the episode plays along, it actually starts to make a lot of sense. I actually wrote down this is really kind of too quick. But he wakes up in a grass field. He has no idea where he's at. All of a sudden, there's these voices talking to him. I think the one voice is by F. Murray Abraham, who plays the kind of the specter thing that we see coming towards him, and especially in the trailer. I can't remember what his character's name is, but I think that's voiced by F. Murray Abraham. And then later on, Oscar Isaac does some voiceover work which is really interesting. But he looks up and he's looking at a castle, and two gunmen start firing at him, and like you have no idea why they're firing at him. He's just crazy things are happening. People are shooting at him. I'm like, this kind of we're as confused as he is, because he wakes up in the middle of a grass field in the middle of wherever as himself, and he is getting people are talking to him from nowhere, and they're calling him Mark and stuff like that. And he runs down the field into this village, and we are once again introduced to Arthur's character, the Ethan Hawke's character, and this town group of individuals are treating him like a god of sorts, like a prophet or whatever. And he actually walks slowly into the village, and Steven's character follows him, and in the process Arthur has a couple people come up to him to see if they're worthy. And that's when we get the scale thing. On the scale, if I can show it, like right here, he holds out the staff that he walks around with, and the staff kind of rotates on the people's hands, and then the scale starts moving, which I thought was a really cool effect. In the process of everything, the first person comes up, the scale moves, but then it keeps black, and that means he's worthy to live. And then this older lady comes up and does the same thing, and the scale goes red, and she dies. She's like, her soul is sucked out of her. I'm like, wow, that's pretty violent. I mean, it's kind of like you don't really see it because this is a Disney Plus show, and they're never going to skirt R-rated violence, or at least they're not doing it in the way they an M-rated show would be. But I kind of like that. And then of course Steven's character is kind of I would say kind of called out because everybody bows down, and he's just standing there with his hood up and stuff like that. And what ends up happening, which is a really cool way to skirt like true horror violence and true graphic violence, is every time he's attacked, he blacks out. Like his vision goes and blacks out, and all of a sudden he's like standing right next to the guys that are attacking him, and they're all dead, and there's like blood on the ground. And it's the same thing when Arthur approaches him and tries to take he has this like jewel which looks like a scarab, I guess you could say. In the process of everything, they're trying to take the jewel from him, but his hand does like the idle hands. If you've ever seen the Idle Hands movie, like it does whatever it wants to do, so it's like pulling itself away from Steven's character and pulling himself away, and he's trying to get away. But then all of the townsfolk are like approaching him, and then of course some of the guards attack him with another individual, and he does the kind of like blackout thing, and all of a sudden he wakes up, he has blood all over his hands, dead guys on the ground. And that's when he runs for it and kind of just runs out of the way and runs towards a vehicle, and he gets in the vehicle. It's a cupcake vehicle, a cupcake truck, which I thought was kind of awesome. And Disney has a way, or especially Marvel has a way of using music in very interesting ways. And this is one of the more goofier songs that they put in there, but it is Wake Me Up Before You Go Go by Wham, which I kind of have to applaud for that, because it almost really like fits and makes the scene more interesting. But he's being chased through the mountains, he's being, he actually drives around a truck and the woman flicks him off, which I laughed at. It actually was really funny. I like how they'll skirt violence, but they'll use like language, or they'll have somebody raise the middle finger. I like that Marvel has just enough there to do it, but he keeps doing the blackout thing every time he is being chased after. Like one guy jumps into the truck and he blacks out and he has a gun. The guy has a bullet hole through his head, which once again is skirting violence. They're chasing him down the roadway, which is curved, similar to something like Goldeneye or something like that. And once again, it happens, and like cars are flying off the ravine, and just next thing he knows, he's like backwards driving. It's pretty great, to be fairly honest. It's a good chase sequence. It's actually done pretty creatively. And I think it works. And then, of course, at one moment, he is turned himself around, and there's these two guys, and they, of course, are gunmen, and they get basically killed by a bunch of trees. And that's when Steven wakes back up in his apartment, and he's like really confused about what's happening. He checks everything. Everything seems to be fine, but he notices his goldfish has two fins. So if you pay attention, you'll see the goldfish only has one fin, which I didn't see it. But apparently when he wakes up, this goldfish has two fins. So what happened to the other goldfish? Did he eat the goldfish? Like, what happened to it? He has a back exchange with the woman in, of course, the pet shop. He realizes what time it is, and he thinks it's Friday when he's going to have his date. So he goes to the restaurant, and he calls the woman because she hasn't shown up yet. Well, he finds out that not only did he miss his date, but he missed it by 2 days. So he missed somehow 2 days of time, which was, of course, the whole village and the castle and the car chase, which I'm assuming that's what happened. But he missed it for some reason. And I thought that was an interesting way to kind of tell the story of what's going on. It's really interesting. Like, I'll continue with the discussion, but it's really interesting, this stuff so far, because this series is only 6 episodes. I don't know if there'll be a second season or not. The thing I was worried about is it going too fast. Actually, is giving us a lot of info while still keeping us in the dark of what's going on, and I really like that. I like the pacing of how this is playing out so far, with how Steven. He's called Mark, but I keep calling it Mark, but he's Steven. How he operates, the things start going out of control. It's a really kind of tightly paced episode, which I never felt out of something like WandaVision or even Falcon the Winter Soldier. I never felt like they were very tightly packed. WandaVision had the uniqueness of being kind of a cool television spinoff type of thing, and I really like that. But I feel this is the most tightly packed of any of the series, even Loki, where it feels so thought out and meticulous in what it's trying to do. It's giving us just enough for information, but doesn't give us a lot of information. I don't know. I really like what that's doing. And maybe I'm kind of hypocritical because I was not a big fan of Hawkeye, but I really feel like this is the perfect so far Disney Plus Marvel show, that I was really just taken aback at how much I enjoyed it. Because when Steven walks into the room, into his apartment, he is, just disenchanted or whatever, defeated, and he's eating candy. It drops on the ground, and he notices some like scratch marks on the floor, and then he looks up and he sees a wood beam is kind of pulled out. So he goes up there and he finds a phone and he finds a set of keys. And that's where we find this introduction to this woman named Layla, who apparently knows him as Mark and hasn't seen him forever, like over a month. So he's like, where is she? Where are you? And it doesn't go very well because Steven's like, who is Mark? Who is this? I just found this phone, and then she hangs up. But it's really interesting because now we have Mark, that type of thing. Who is Mark? What is going on? And that's when things start getting like really kind of weird and out of place. We hear, of course, Oscar Isaac's voice now. Steven goes and looks into the bathroom and he sees somebody he doesn't recognize, but it's him. It's the Mark character. And I think it's Mark or something like that, Mark Spector. And he actually sees everything start going out of control in his apartment, which I thought was really cool. It's a good visual kind of flex. And then he runs to he actually walks to the elevator shaft. And that's, if you've seen the clip, you know what happens in this, where the elevator shaft opens up, and I think this is the F. Murray Abraham character, what I call a Spectre, but he's like an Egyptian god almost, so he looks like. But like I said, he wakes up, or he does the blackout thing again. I know it did that sound, but I like the anyways, he blacks out and he wakes up on a bus. And he actually sees that creature outside the window, like staring back at him. And he actually gets off the bus, and he notices Arthur's on the bus because Steven told his name to Arthur when he's in the village. And he walks into the museum, And as he's walking there, he's approached by Arthur. And so he walks towards one of the security guards, and the security guard is, of course, a follower of Arthur and Ahmed and stuff like that. Arthur kind of has a lot of knowledge about this Ahmed character, which I thought was interesting about how like the character works and how the god kind of will judge you in a lot of respects. Then he grabs he grabs Steven's arms, and the scale starts moving. All of a sudden, he's like, "You have a lot of chaos in you," which is really interesting because it's Moon Knight, because he has a lot of chaos, but. You know, as Steven walks away, he gets away because all the kids in the hall or whatever, they're in, walking through the museum. And before he actually closes for the night and leaves the place, he hears what sounds like a dog. And now I apologize, I haven't looked up what this dog is. I don't know what kind of Egyptian creature it is. But he walks towards the sound of the dog, and all of a sudden this creature just comes to life, and it's like this horrifying dog-looking thing of, Egyptian style. It chases after him, and of course he runs into the bathroom. It chases through him through the museum, but he walks into the bathroom, or runs in the bathroom, closes the door. And what really is kind of cool is he looks in the mirror, and all of a sudden the mirror image of himself starts talking to him. And this is where we're going to learn about, probably the split personality stuff that this character has. But the character in the mirror tells him to give him full control of the body, which is really interesting because the one thing about Oscar Isaac is he looks really tired in this show. It's the first episode, so it kind of makes sense of what's going on, because it doesn't look like he ever sleeps. But at first he's like freaking out. He doesn't know what to do. And then he finally decides, I'm going to give control. The creature from Egypt, the beast creature, pops up, and the creature gets his ass kicked and killed. And then we get our first true look of Moon Knight, the character, the superhero. And then cut the credits, in cliffhanger style, what Marvel and Disney have done in every TV show they've done so far. And yeah, that's the end of the episode. That is the end of episode 1. And it's really good. I'm right there with them. It's a really good episode. It has issues where it does move more quickly than it should. I think they could give this episode like 10 more minutes and make kind of more fleshed it out, especially with the whole idea of what's going on. But I think the fact that this is the first episode and we're given just enough to figure out there's something wrong with Steven's character. His name is Mark for some reason. Thing happening to him with Egypt and this bad guy chasing after him. And it kind of leads to the introduction of Moon Knight himself. I loved it. I thought it was great. This is the best series as a first episode of everyone that's been put out so far. And I'm really intrigued. I'm really excited to see, like I said, I haven't watched the other 3 episodes as this recording, but I'm really intrigued to see where it goes next. And for a first episode, especially of a Marvel series, I am definitely on board at this point. I think it's worth it. I think Oscar Isaac does a really nice job, as he always does. I love the kind of weird aura creepiness of course, Ethan Hawke's character. There is a point with the gunman, which is a little Marvel-ish, I guess you could say, but it's not too bad. And it's dealing with the Egyptian culture, which is kind of cool. So anyways, with that said, for my score of this episode, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I think it is definitely a good episode to great episode. Like I said, I just wish it was a little bit longer so it could flesh out a little bit more, because once again, there are only 6 episodes, so it really is going to have to move quicker and quickly. But I wish each episode was at least 50 to 55, maybe 60 minutes, just to kind of even out everything. But once again, for a first episode, this is better than WandaVision's first episode, so there you go. But with that said, that is going to be my take on the very first episode of this series, which is Moon Knight. Thank you so much for watching. I know you guys are going to watch this series. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. I know some of you guys won't like it, so definitely let me know if you didn't like it. Tell me why. But if you did like it, also tell me why as well. But otherwise, with that said, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.